Hi everybody, welcome to the show. I'm so glad you joined us today. This time of year always makes me very nostalgic for Christmases gone by. I had a wonderful childhood and I really remember lots of special things about Christmas time. I wanted to create this page so my little boys could look back and know a little bit more about their mom. So let's get started. The first thing we want to start with are the elements that go onto our page. I found this really pretty sheet music paper. I cut it down to 8.5 by 11. I printed out the word memories and I remember. This is going to be our title, and then I remember is going to be a journal header. The next thing I did is I cut out the words in rectangle. I wanted to add a little panache to this title, and so I took it over to my sewing machine and machine stitched around the border, leaving about 1/4 of an inch on all sides. Now we're going to work on our slide mounts. I have this machine, it's called a Sizzix personal die cut system. It's very cool, you can do all kinds of things with it. The die cut that we're using today is going to be the frames, slide mounts, and coin holder die cuts. It's one of the Sizzix original cuts. I'm going to use regular foam for my slide mount. Put this face down on top of the foam, and we're going to slide it under this bar. Now we're going to take this lever, just push down. It's very satisfying. And we're going to slide it again under the bar and push down. Now we're going to slide this out. As you can see, it cut the foam. Isn't that fun? The one that we are going to use is this slide mount right here. Now what we want to do, we're going to use our pattern paper and we're just going to cut the same thing and we're going to cover our slide mount. So I'm going to use this striped pattern paper, and since this is such a vertical stripe, I don't want it to cut crooked when I put it through the Sizzix, and so I'm going to turn it upside down. We're going to line it up along the edge to where it's straight. I'm going to take my die cut, and we're going to put it over, push the lever down once, and we have our die cut. Isn't that cool? And it's going to go right on top of there. I have this tape runner by Thermoweb. It's the Memory Tape Runner XL. The cool thing about it is that it's refillable. Another cool thing about it is it has this neat swivel head, so if you're doing lots of curlicues, your tape runner is really going to follow that line. I put some adhesive onto the foam, and I'm going to put my decorative paper on top of the frame, and that just decorates it up a little bit. I wanted to decorate it even more, so I decided to round my corners with some scissors, and I also used an old ink pad and inked around the edges. I also added a mint green satin ribbon that I just got at my craft store to add some Christmas color to this. Now we're going to add our journal header that I printed out earlier. I remember. We're going to put this behind the photo mount. And using your tape runner, I'm just going to run tape along these thin edges. Now, you're going to put your I remember. I like to flip mine over so I can make sure that I'm centering it exactly. And you're just going to center it and press down. So now we have this excess. We're just going to trim off the edge, flip it over again, just trim that one off as well. And you have your journal header right there. I also made 2 other slide mounts, and I wanted to highlight some old pictures from my childhood. I have this picture of me at my house on Christmas Eve, and then I also have a picture of my window, my childhood home. So now we're going to work on our focal point photo. I have this picture of me on Christmas morning. I scanned it into my computer and turned it into black and white. I cut out some really pretty handmade paper. It has this coppery red tone. When you're applying papers, photos to handmade paper, you have to use something that has a really strong bond. So I'm going to use these zips, peel off this paper backing, and voila, we have our glue on there. Now we're going to layer our picture. So I'm getting it nice and straight and press down. I chose an off-white cardstock because I loved this pattern paper. that has this collage style. I trimmed off 1/4 inch from one side and from the top. And when you lay it on your 12 by 12 paper, it gives it a really nice little tiny border all the way around. We're going to adhere this with our tape runner. Just slide it along. I like to make almost little photo corners with the adhesive. Now we're going to flip it over and make sure our sides are pretty even and press down. Now we're going to add another piece of pattern paper. I found this pretty burgundy paper. I tore one corner off. I left the white edge showing, and we're going to adhere this in the bottom corner. The next element we're using is actually a really funny story. I was working on this page and my little baby was walking around, and he's in that stage where, you know, he's into everything, and every drawer he pulls open, he really pulls everything out of. And I was working on this page and I thought, you know, something is just missing. I don't know what it is, and I went to see what he was up to, and I found this torn sheet music on the ground. But I didn't scold him, I gave him a cookie because that element was perfect for my page. I didn't end up tearing all of that sheet music to use. I did scan it into my computer and then printed it out on some off-white cardstock to give it that vintage look. And so I call it the Benjamin tear technique. We're going to put one piece up here in the top corner, and then I'm also tucking a piece behind this torn pattern in the middle of the page. Now we want to add some more photos. I told you how I scanned some photos into the computer. Well, this one you'll actually remember from one of the slide mounts. I wanted it to be nice and large, and I thought that it looked really good against this burgundy paper. I also have this picture of my family. This is one that I did turn into black and white. I'm going to put that right there. Now what we're going to work on are some other little elements we're going to place on top of these. I have this really pretty C monogram die cut. And I chose it not only because it was Christmas time at my house, but also because my maiden name is Carter, and so it works in both situations. I'm going to ink the edges a little bit with my old ink pad. Remember, don't throw them away. And it gives it a nice shadow. Now we're going to take our tape runner, and it swivels around this C. Now, we're going to place this on top of this glowing Christmas tree picture. If you can see, there's a little bitty Christmas tree here in the back. And we're going to place this C on top of that to where it very subtly frames this Christmas tree. Now what we're going to do, I have these little words that I cut out from this definition paper I have. We're just going to stick them on top. One more. Whoop, I can get it up. This word says remember, and this one is bright, and this one is memory. Now we're going to bring over this plain vellum. I want to show you the softening effect that this gives to the layout. The first thing I want to add is the title that we worked on earlier. Now I wanted to add a little personal touch to this, so I'm actually going to write of Christmas past on the block. And we're going to put this on here. Now we're going to place our main focal point photo down at this corner. I'm going to angle it a little bit just to give it a little bit more prominence than the other elements. Now I also want to add my slide mounts. Two of them are going to go over here, and then my journal header is going to be placed up here. Now you can see that I have all of this lovely space for some journaling, my memories that this whole page is about. So what I decided to do is I wrote using a permanent black pen onto the vellum. And voila, we have it already finished. I wrote the journaling, and it was almost a stream of consciousness journaling where you just write. I didn't worry about spacing. I just wanted to write these memories. This is a collage page, and it should look collage. I also added these really pretty little paper snowflakes, and if you can see, these are going to be in a visual triangle because I have one here, and one here. Now we're going to adhere our vellum to our background page. I'm going to take this off for a moment. Now we're going to add some adhesive with our memory tape runner, and now we're going to put our vellum on. Make sure that it's nice and straight because this is really a permanent bond, and so once you stick it down, it's not going to move. When I wrote this journaling, I wrote it in bullet point form, but I don't like these black bullets. They're not very pretty, they're not very Christmassy, and they don't really go well with the colors of the layout. So what I chose to use was this Delta Ceramcoat Gleams in metallic bronze, and I squeezed it out into my little dish. I'm going to use the end of my paintbrush, not the brush part, the end. I'm going to dip the end, just get a little dot of paint, and we're going to barely touch it onto our bullet point. It's very small, but it adds such a nice color and a gleam to the layout. And I'm going to do all those. Now make sure that when you do this, that you set it aside to dry. These paints by Delta that are the Gleams line, they have this beautiful metallic pearlized sheen. If you mess up, it's also easy to clean up with water, so acrylic paint is one of my favorite tools to use for a layout. So now let's look at our finished page. I added the photo corners, and I also added some rub-on snowflakes to add a little more of a collage look. Get out your old photos, make some new memories, make some new traditions, and I hope you enjoy making this page, and I'll see you next time.
For step-by-step instructions on how to create this week's project, download the design guide featuring special make-it-your-own bonus tips.